Hello and welcome to Revealing Revelation, the Bible prophecy channel that gets to the heart of the mysteries of prophecy. My name is Alain Dubreuil, and if you get something out of our teachings, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget, in the description box under every video, we have links to 10 additional language translations for every video and every short to make it easier to share these mysteries of prophecy with family and friends around the world. With that being said, we have another exciting one here today. In the last in the last short that I did, we covered this, but I now wanted to cover it in greater detail to really help you understand the years of the end of days revealed in the book of Revelation. In Revelation, we see that there's 42 months, 1260 days, and time and times and half a time. But we've been told all our lives that this is the end of days is only 7 years. So what's happened is they've had to combine 42 months and 1260 and say that that's really the same time, and then keep separate the time and times in half a time. And other people have argued and said no, the 42 months is by itself and the 1260 days is combined to be the same time as the time and times in half a time. Now, why have we been taught this generation after generation? Because everybody has believed that the end of days is 7 years. But you all know here, you've been following since we launched this channel about 2 months ago, or if you've been tracking us since our main ministry 8 years ago at Ministry Revealed, you know that the truth of the end of days is 14 years, and it's revealed in the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and in the end, it will play out as Luke, Mark, Matthew. Luke's is the above, about 50 days, and then 7 years of seals of Mark's discourse and Mark's gospel, and then 7 years of trumpets for Matthew's discourse and Matthew's portion. But we've all been told that the end of days is 7 years because everybody's been taught from the Gospel of Matthew, and they've missed the bigger picture. So when you see these three different periods of time, why, if the Lord meant for them to be the same, why wouldn't he have just called the 1260 days 42 months like the other places? Or like others say, why not just call the 1260 days time and times in half a time instead of separating it into three portions of time? The answer is because they are three separate periods of time for a total of 10 and a half years. Now that you understand 14 years, it's not difficult to figure out how 10 and a half years excuse me, will play out in the end of days. So where do we see these times? In Revelation chapter 13, and remember, just look to the right if I forget to mention what chapter I'm in, but in Revelation chapter 13, verse 5, we see that the beast gets his power for now 42 months. This is when the beast has his power and authority as the Antichrist, the beast of the end of days, and when the false prophet also shows up and tells everybody to worship him, and it's the time of the mark of the beast. That doesn't happen right at the beginning of tribulation. So I'm going to show you where this breaks down to understand where this total 10 and a half years plays out in the 14. So here's his 42 months. And then in Revelation chapter 12, starting in verse 6, we see that there's a period of 1260 days where this woman has got a place prepared for her. What else is going to happen during this 1260 days? In Revelation chapter 11, we see in verse 3, it says, "And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy for 1260 days. So while that's happening with the woman in the place prepared, the witnesses are here for 1260 days. When do the witnesses show up? Well, look at this. Verse 3 talks about the treading underfoot for 42 months. This 42 months is the same 42 months when the beast has his power and authority of the mark of the beast. The two witnesses don't show up till after the 42 months, and they're here prophesying for 1260 days after the 42 months. Now, why is this important? Because when we go back to Revelation chapter 12, we see 1260 days mentioned in verse 6, and then we see the dragon is cast down to the earth. So when the 1260 days is done and the two witnesses are over, Satan is cast down, and in verse 14, we're told of the final portion of time. when the woman's given wings of a great eagle to fly into the wilderness to a place protected until what? For a time and times and half a time. This is what? Comma and comma and are very important because it's separation and in addition to. Time means one plus times meaning two plus half a time. That's 1 plus 2 plus a half. That's a total of 3.5 years. When does this time come? After the 1260 days. When is the 1260 days? After the 42 months. So now the question is, where do these times play out? Well, I taught in a previous teaching the mystery of the beast of Revelation chapter 17, verse 8, the beast that was, is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. The was is when he has his power and authority for 42 months. The is not is when he's defeated by the Lord towards the end of seals. When we see at the end of the sixth seal, the Lord coming, and he's going, and everybody's panicking. This is when the Lord kills the beast and the 10 horns that are with him, and they're not cast into the lake of fire at this point. They are cast into the pit. And then what does it say? And then it says, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. The was is his power for 42 months in the second half of seals. The is when he's not here and the two witnesses are doing their prophesying for 1260 days. When their 1260 days is over, the beast is coming out of the bottomless pit and going into perdition, and it's the beginning of the time and times and half a time. Now, you'll remember in the other piece that I've taught in the differences in the Gospels, when we look at the discourse of Mark's discourse, verse 8, so chapter 13, verse 8, is the beginning of the 14 years with nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. What is this period of time? It's World War III. So approximately the first half of seals, 7 years, is the timing of World War III. And you'll notice there's no mention of false Christs or false prophets. And then all of a sudden in verse 14, we have the abomination of desolation standing where it ought not. And in the Strong's Concordance means also place where it ought not. This is Revelation 13 when the beast gets his power for 42 months. It's the time of the mark of the beast. And it says it will be a time worse than it was in all creation up to this point. And look who shows up. Now you've got the mention of the false Christs and the false prophets. This is his 42 months beginning in about mid-seals, okay? About the midst of the first 7 years. Until what? Until the Lord comes towards the end of seals and kills the beast and the 10 horns that are with him. But the false the false prophet isn't killed, but his power and dominion is taken away. We read about this in Daniel chapter 7. Now watch this. Now we go to Matthew's discourse. Matthew's discourse is the 7 years of trumpets. And in the first half of Matthew's discourse, chapter 24, we see mention of false prophets, but no mention of false Christs. Why? Because he was and now he is not. You see? But the false prophet is still here because he isn't killed. And then what happens? Then we get to verse 15 in Matthew's discourse, and we have another abomination of desolation says, stand in the holy place, because in the first half of trumpets, which is the 1260 days, while the two witnesses were prophesying, the city streets and temple were being rebuilt. And by mid-trumpets, when the 1260 days are over, in the time when the beast is not, the temple has now been built. And what happens at that point? Satan is cast down, and the pit is now opened, and it's the time of time and times and half a time. Well, look at what happens now in Matthew's discourse. We get to verse 24 of Matthew 24, and false Christs and false prophets are now both back on the scene again. Why? Because this abomination of desolation represents the mid-trumpets time when Satan is cast down and the pit is open, and now the false Christ, the Antichrist, the beast, has now returned. You see, it's the revelation of the was, is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. But the 42 months does not start the 14 years. It starts with World War III. and then the beast gets his power for 42 months, and then you have the 1260 days of the is not, while the city streets and temple are being rebuilt, and the two witnesses are there until their testimony is done. And then at mid trumpets, the beast comes out of the pit at the time and times and half a time. You see, remember what happens when the 1260 days are done in Revelation chapter 12? Satan is now cast out. Satan is now cast to the earth. He knows he has about a short time, and it's time and times and half a time. That's the same period as Revelation 9 at the fifth trumpet, which is the first woe, when the key to the bottomless pit is given and the pit is opened. It's the same when we read in Revelation chapter 11. It says that the two witnesses were prophesying for 1260 days, and when their prophesying was over, we come to verse 7, and it says, when they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit, which means after the 1260 days, shall make war against them, overcome them, and kill them. How long is this war going to last? Is it going to last the full final 3.5 years of time and times and half a time? Nope. Daniel chapter 12, verse 7 says, how long, O Lord, will this last? How long before all of this is accomplished and finished? And he told them that it will be for a time, times, and a half. You notice there's no and between time and times. Why? Because this means 1, 2.5 years. 2.5 of the final 3.5 years. So Satan, the beast, and the false prophet will have 2.5 years of the final 3.5 years of tribulation. Why is this? Because in Matthew's discourse, we're told that at the coming of the Lord, it will be as it was in the days of Noah. And the days of Noah, brothers and sisters, began on the second month, 17th day, and they ended on the second month, 27th day, 1 year and 10 days long. Why does that matter? Because that final year and 10 days that the Lord is here, destroying then finally the beast and the false prophet into the lake of fire, and binding Satan for 1,000 years and destroying all of the enemies of Israel and of the Lord, it's going to be 1 year and 10 days long. Why? Because Leviticus 25 said that after 49 years, and the 14th year of tribulation, brothers and sisters, is the 49th year, the final year of the 7 times 7. And only the 49th year is 1 year and 10 days longer, because it will be the cause of the trumpeting of the sounding of the Jubilee. You see, brothers and sisters, the end of days, the 14 years, begins with World War III. Then about mid-seals, it is 42 months of the beast until he's killed towards the end of seals. Then it's 1260 days of the two witnesses of the rebuilding of the temple until Satan is cast down, the pit is open, and the beast returns, and there's time and times and half a time, of which the enemies have 2.5 years to make war against the two witnesses until the Lord returns then, feet down on the Mount of Olives for the final year and 10 days, the 49th year to the Jubilee. I pray this blesses you. God bless you. Bye for now.